Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Welcome to the big news of the day. If you're finding our new initiative to be helpful, do let us know by liking the video and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. The topic for today is Uniform Civil Code that is likely to be implemented by the Uttarakhand state government. In this short and crisp analysis, we shall understand what is the Uniform Civil Code, including its constitutional background and its desirability in the Indian context, along with covering the different sides of the argument surrounding this controversial topic. But first, let's understand why the topic is in news. Yesterday, the Chief Minister of Uttarakhand has announced that the state government is going to fulfill its electoral promise to implement the Uniform Civil Code, and accordingly, the state cabinet has unanimously approved the establishment of a committee of experts which will work out a path for the implementation of Uniform Civil Code in the state. According to Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami, the implementation of the UCC will boost equal rights for everyone in the state and enhance social harmony while promoting gender justice and women empowerment. So in this context, first let's understand what is the Uniform Civil Code. See, Uniform Civil Code refers to a set of common civil laws that would apply to all religious communities equally. These civil laws will cover interpersonal relationships and deals with matters such as marriage, divorce, inheritance, adoption, succession, etc. The provision for UCC has been covered under Article 44 of the Indian Constitution. It is part of the Directive Principles of State Policy. Under Article 44, the state has been directed to secure a uniform civil code for the citizens throughout the territory of India. Its intention is to replace the fragmented personal laws that exist for different religions and for different communities, and to provide for a common and equal personal civil law that would govern interpersonal relationships, thus setting the stage for the establishment of an egalitarian and equal society. But it is equally important to note that such a uniform code can be implemented only when the society is ready, and such personal laws cannot be forced down neither by the state nor the judiciary. Because it is very important to note that directive principles of state policy, they are not justiciable, meaning they are not enforceable in a court of law. DPSPs are just a set of goals and mandates that have been laid down for the state to promote socio-economic growth and development of the country. It just lays down the duty of the state, and through various important rulings, the judiciary has clearly established the supremacy of fundamental rights over directive principles of state policy. For example, in the landmark Minerva Mills case, the Supreme Court held that the Indian Constitution is founded on the bedrock of the balance between fundamental rights and DPSPs. According to the Supreme Court, to give absolute primacy to one over the other is to disturb the harmony in the Constitution. So our Constitution makers included this provision under DPSP in order to push the Indian society to strive towards an egalitarian equal society, but only when the society was ready for such a transition. So in this context, we should first examine what are the current personal laws that we have. As of now, different religious communities are currently governed by a system of personal laws, some of which have been codified over the years through different legislations. And some communities, they still follow their religious codes, thus representing the religious and ethnic diversity in India. As discussed, these personal laws that already exist, they focus on interpersonal areas such as marriage, divorce, custody and guardianship, adoption, maintenance and succession and inheritance. For example, we have the Hindu personal law, which is codified under 4 different bills, including the Hindu Marriage Act, the Hindu Succession Act, Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act, and Hindu Adoptions and Maintenance Act. Under these laws, the term Hindu just doesn't cover the Hindu community, but also includes the Sikhs, Jains, and Buddhists. On the other hand, Muslims, Christians, and Zoroastrians, are governed by their own religious codes. And for example, Muslim personal law is not codified, but rather based on their religious texts. And certain aspects of these codes have been explicitly recognized in India through various acts, such as the Shariat Application Act and the Dissolution of Muslim Marriages Act. Similarly, Christian marriages and divorces are governed under the Indian Christian Marriages Act and the Indian Divorce Act. And for Zoroastrians, there is the Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act. Apart from these religious codes and personal laws, we also have more secular laws which completely disregard religion altogether. For example, the Special Marriage Act accounts for interreligious or interfaith marriages. And on similar lines, the Guardians and Wards Act establishes the rights and duties of guardians. So while we have a different set of personal laws for different communities, the question is India really ready for a common code or for a uniform code that governs personal laws and interpersonal relationships? There is no doubt that aspiring towards a uniform civil code is an egalitarian objective, but that is often a feature of developed countries where the society in general has moved beyond its religious divisions. But in a diverse country like India, where you have multiple faiths, religions, ethnicities, and with different customs being practiced across different tribes and communities, the question does arise that whether the Indian society is ready to accept a uniform personal code. Here it is important to note that in Goa, already a uniform civil code exists. On one hand, to protect the distinct regional identities in certain states, such as Assam, Nagaland, Mizoram, Andhra Pradesh, etc., the constitution already provides for exceptions with regard to personal laws, considering the tribal population of some of these states. Because many tribal and indigenous communities have their own customs and practices, and the constitution doesn't seek to interfere with them. On the other hand, Goa happens to be the only state currently which has a uniform civil code in place. This is the Portuguese Civil Code of 1867, and it applies to all those who are domiciled in Goa. Irrespective of one's religious or ethnic identity, and irrespective of whether you're a Hindu, Muslim, or a Christian, a common set of civil laws will apply to you if you're domiciled in Goa. But however, legal experts have pointed out that the Portuguese Civil Code is not a true and complete uniform civil code. Because first of all, the Portuguese Civil Code is alien in the Indian context because it was given by a foreign entity. And moreover, the Portuguese Civil Code is still based on several orthodox religious bases and values, which makes it completely unsuited in the modern context. For example, the Portuguese Civil Code allows Hindu men to practice bigamy if the wife fails to deliver a child by the age of 25 or a male child by the age of 30. So these two factors lead to the argument that the Portuguese Civil Code is not a true uniform civil code. So if Uttarakhand goes ahead and implements the Uniform Civil Code as committed, then Uttarakhand would become the first state to implement a true Uniform Civil Code, and there are arguments both for and against it. The proponents of Uniform Civil Code have long argued that implementing a uniform civil law will not just promote equality and secularism, but will also promote gender justice and women empowerment. Because generally, when religious codes are followed with regard to personal laws and interpersonal relationships, women's rights and gender equality are generally eroded, as religious codes tend to be very orthodox in nature. But those who are opposed to UCC point out that the Indian society is still not ready for such a transition, and the state shouldn't attempt to force it down their throat, as any such forceful attempt could disrupt the social fabric of the country. In this context, we need to look at what Dr. Ambedkar said about Uniform Civil Code. The chairperson of the Constituent Assembly had stated that UCC is definitely desirable, but for the moment, it should remain voluntary. It was included in the Constitution as a feature which would be fulfilled only when the nation is ready for such a transition, and there should be widespread social acceptance for such a uniform civil law. In fact, in his speech, Dr. Ambedkar had stated in the Constituent Assembly that no one need to be apprehensive that if the state has the power to force down a uniform civil code, and only a mad government can try to force it down, even when it is found to be objectionable by the other communities. So this makes it clear that Dr. Ambedkar called for a UCC only when the Indian society was ready for it and not through a forceful majoritarian imposition by the state. The Supreme Court, on the other hand, has favored the Uniform Civil Code in various rulings and judgments, and has even pointed out recently in 2019 that the Indian state has failed to take any action with regard to Article 44, even though it's a desirable law and an egalitarian objective. Legal and constitutional experts have argued that if the framers of the Constitution had intended to have a uniform civil code, then they would have given exclusive jurisdiction to the Parliament itself so that the Parliament could have framed laws related to uniform civil code. If that was the case, the Constitution makers would have included this subject under the Union list, thereby giving exclusive jurisdiction to the Parliament. But instead, personal laws have been mentioned in the concurrent list, and as pointed out, they have been placed under DPSP, which is not enforceable or justiciable. So, according to legal and constitutional experts, this makes Uniform Civil Code a desirable and egalitarian objective for an equal society, but only in the long run, and that too when the Indian society is ready to accept such common civil laws. In this context, it's also important to point out the recommendations of the Law Commission of India, which has clearly stated in its report that a uniform civil code is neither feasible nor desirable in the Indian context, at least as of now. So with this, I would like to bring today's discussion to an end. Thanks for watching.